You have seen the photos. A small, round-faced marsupial leaning in close to a stranger's camera, its mouth curled into what looks unmistakably like a smile. The internet has crowned it the happiest animal on Earth. Millions of people now travel to a single small island off the coast of Western Australia, hoping to stand next to that smile for a few seconds, hoping some of that joy will show up in the photo too. But that expression is not what you think it is. And once you understand what is actually happening behind that face, you will never look at a quokka selfie the same way again. Let's start with the smile itself, because it is the least interesting part of this story, and also the part everyone gets wrong. That upward curl at the corner of a quokka's mouth is not an emotional expression. It is a structural feature of the jaw, shaped over generations partly as a mechanism to help the animal regulate its body temperature in the heat of the Australian coast. It looks like joy to a human eye because human eyes are built to search for faces and read them as if they were our own. But a quokka's mouth cannot tell you what a quokka is feeling. Its eyes can, and its eyes are doing something far more sophisticated than anyone posing for a photo tends to realize. Because here is what is actually happening in that moment. While a tourist is busy composing the perfect shot, the quokka is running its own calculation. Researchers who study these animals describe a behavior known as investigative orientation, a deliberate, active process of assessing a new presence in its environment. This is not an animal freezing in fear or wandering over out of instinct. It is closer to what happens when a crow studies a human face closely enough to remember it years later, or when a backyard squirrel builds a detailed internal map of your schedule, your gait, the specific hours you tend to appear. Small animals with limited resources cannot afford to waste energy on random exploration. Every approach is a decision. And when a quokka chooses to approach a human being, it has run the numbers and concluded, provisionally, that you are safe. That conclusion did not come easily. It was built the same way trust is built in any species, including our own, through generations of accumulated experience. Quokkas that live on Rottnest Island, the place most associated with this behavior, have grown up in an environment functionally free of the predators that would normally keep a small marsupial cautious. Wildlife researchers describe this using a concept called the landscape of fear, the invisible mental map every animal carries of where danger might be lurking. On the mainland, that map is dense with warning signs. On an island with no natural predators, an entire category of danger simply does not exist in the quokka's internal geography. There is no hole where the fear of humans should be, because for most of their evolutionary history here, humans posed no threat worth mapping. This is why they don't run, not because they are tame, and not because they lack the instinct for self-preservation that every wild animal carries, but because generation after generation, the evidence available to them has said that stillness is safe. That is not naivete. That is a hypothesis, built and tested and passed down, the same way a bird passes an alarm call, encoding the size and speed of an approaching threat to the next generation in the nest. The quokka's ancestors ran that experiment for you, and the current generation is living out the results. But do not mistake this trust for softness. Underneath the internet's favorite smiling animal is a creature capable of a decision that most people would find almost unbearable to watch. When a mother quokka is cornered by a genuine predator, one of the few natural threats still present in parts of their range, she may eject the joey from her pouch mid-flight. It sounds like abandonment. It is the opposite. A distracted predator that stops to investigate the joey buys the mother critical seconds. And in the brutal arithmetic of survival, one surviving adult capable of breeding again is sometimes worth more than a single vulnerable offspring in that specific moment. This is not the story of a Disney animal. This is the story of a wild one, making an unthinkable calculation under pressure, the same way every wild species eventually has to. And that is precisely what makes what happens next so important. Because right now, on Rottnest Island, something is quietly shifting. Quokkas who once approached out of genuine curiosity are increasingly approaching because visitors feed them, sometimes deliberately, sometimes simply by dropping food nearby without thinking. When this happens repeatedly, the relationship changes shape entirely. The quokka is no longer investigating a stranger out of natural curiosity. It has begun treating human presence the way a backyard bird treats a feeder that appears every morning at the same time, not as an encounter, but as infrastructure. Something to be relied upon. Something whose disappearance would leave a gap the animal no longer knows how to fill on its own. This matters because animals learn from watching each other as much as they learn from direct experience. One quokka observed successfully approaching a human for food will pass that behavior on socially, the same way certain crow populations transmit specific learned behaviors across a group. A single, well-meaning tourist with a sandwich can, without ever intending to, reshape the behavior of an entire local population. And a population that has been taught to associate humans with food is a population that has quietly, invisibly, become dependent on us in a way that is fragile the moment the flow of tourists changes, or the moment someone offers the wrong food entirely. Something that can genuinely sicken a small marsupial digestive system built for a very different diet. Here is the part worth sitting with. The quokka's willingness to approach you is not a given. It is not a fixed trait of the species, hardwired and permanent. It is closer to a measurement, a live readout of whether the relationship between this animal and the humans in its environment has stayed healthy or slowly turned corrosive. Scientists who think about human-wildlife relationships this way sometimes describe animals like the quokka as bioindicators of trust. Just as a toad's presence in a garden tells you something true about the invisible chemistry of the soil, a quokka's continued willingness to approach without fear tells you something true about the invisible chemistry of an entire tourism relationship. When that trust holds, it is because the interactions have stayed, on balance, safe. When it breaks, when quokkas begin retreating instead of approaching, it will not be a mystery. It will be a verdict on how the last several decades of contact actually went. So if you are ever lucky enough to stand near one of these animals, here is what you can actually do with everything you now understand. Give it the space to choose. Wildlife biologists often describe something close to a 10-foot buffer as a reasonable rule of thumb for small, non-aggressive wildlife. Enough distance that the animal always has a clear route to retreat if it decides to. Resist the urge to lock eyes directly, since sustained direct staring reads across a surprising number of species as the posture of a predator sizing up prey rather than a curious observer. And above everything else, never offer food, not even a small piece, not even once. The moment you do, you are no longer a visitor the quokka is evaluating with genuine curiosity. You have become infrastructure, a resource it will now expect from the next stranger who walks past, and the one after that, whether or not that next person understands what they are stepping into. None of this makes the quokka less remarkable. If anything, it makes the whole story more remarkable. Because what looked at first like a cartoonish, permanently happy animal turns out to be something closer to a small, careful diplomat, constantly reassessing whether the species standing in front of it can still be trusted. That is not a lesser story than the smiling selfie. It is a far better one. Have you ever had a wild animal look at you and felt, even for a second, like it was actually seeing you, weighing you, deciding something about you? Tell me about it in the comments. I read every one of them. And if you want to understand another creature whose presence works the same way, quietly grading the health of the world around it without ever saying a word, The next video is already waiting for you.